The courtroom air hung thick with tension, my uncle's smug grin slicing through it like a knife. He sat there, suit pressed sharp, claiming my father's company as his own. "The will is clear," his lawyer boomed, waving the paper that cut me out like I was trash. I felt my gut twist, years of sweat beside Dad, building that business from a tiny garage workshop to $1 million machine shop. But the judge nodded, and just like that, it was gone. My uncle leaned back, eyes mocking me. He thought he'd won. He didn't know I'd spotted the tiny flaw in his perfect forgery that night, hidden in Dad's old safe. It was a faint watermark, one Dad only used on his personal stationery, not legal documents. Uncle Galbert, in his greed, had grabbed the wrong paper. Before I tell you how I turned his victory to dust, tell me where you're watching from and hit that like button. Stories like this need to spread so cheaters learn their lesson. My mind raced back to the funeral, rain pounding the cemetery like angry fists. Dad's casket lowered into the ground, and my uncle was already whispering to lawyers. I was 28, fresh from engineering school, ready to take over. "It's yours, son," he'd said months earlier, voice weak from cancer. But the will read different, everything to Uncle Galbert. I confronted him that night. "This ain't right," I said, voice shaking. He laughed, low and cold. "Your dad changed his mind." "Too bad." His eyes gleamed, the same look he'd given Dad when borrowing money he never repaid. I felt betrayal burn hot. The company wasn't just money, it was Dad's legacy, our late nights fixing engines. Now stolen. I packed my bags, jobless, broke, but suspicion gnawed at me like rust on steel. Little did I know, Dad had left a clue. Living in a rundown apartment, the walls thin as paper, I scraped by on odd jobs, fixing cars for cash. The smell of grease and failure clung to me. Nights, I pored over copies of the will, the ink too perfect, the signature off by a hair. Uncle Galbert ran the company now, renaming it Galbert's Precision Engineering, firing loyal workers like they were scrap. I heard from old friends, profits soaring, but morale dead. He was selling off Dad's favorite machines. It stung, imagining him in Dad's office, feet up on the desk we built together. One evening, a knock came. It was Dad's old accountant, Mr. Ezekiel, eyes darting. "Your father mentioned a safe," he whispered, hidden behind the painting in his study. "Something about protection." My heart pounded. I drove to the old house, now Uncle's, sneaking in under cover of dark, my breath catching in my throat. It felt wrong, breaking into my own home. The safe was there, code Dad's birthday. Inside, old papers, a USB drive, and a note: "If anything happens, check the will. Check the paper." I plugged in the drive videos of Dad, healthy, dictating his real wishes. Me as heir. But how to prove the forgery? The pain hit hard, tears blurring the screen. Uncle had crossed a line, but I was closing in. Subscribe if this grips you, justice tastes sweet when earned. The videos showed Dad clear-eyed, naming me successor. "My brother Galbert gets nothing, he's a leech," Dad said on camera, his voice firm. "He's been skimming from the company for years, but I can't prove it. Don't trust him." My blood boiled. Uncle had always envied Dad's success, borrowing tools he never returned, badmouthing him behind his back. Now he'd forged the will to steal it all. I needed proof the document was fake. I met a handwriting expert in a dingy office, sliding the will across. "Look close," I said. "The signature, and the paper." She magnified the signature lines too straight, pressure even, like a machine, not Dad's shaky hand from illness. "Forgery," she confirmed. Then she examined the paper. And this watermark, highly unusual for a legal document. It cost me my last savings, but worth it. Uncle paraded his wealth meanwhile, new car, fancy house extensions. I saw him at a company event from afar, toasting "my empire." Rage simmered, relatable to anyone screwed by family. I hired a lawyer on contingency, a sharp guy who smelled blood. We build the case slowly, he said. Hit hard. Suspense built as I gathered statements from Dad's friends. The net tightened, but Uncle sniffed trouble, sending goons to warn me off two broad-shouldered men who cornered me outside my apartment. Mind your business, one growled. I wouldn't budge. Uncle's threats came subtle at first: a slashed tire, anonymous calls. Drop it, a voice growled. Then the goons showed up again, shoving me against my apartment door. Last warning. I knew it was him, paranoia setting in like fog over a lake. Days blurred into research, digging company records for embezzlement clues. Dad had suspected Uncle of skimming funds years ago. I found old emails: Uncle begging for loans, Dad refusing. You're a black hole, Galbert. Motive clear. My life crumbled. My girlfriend, Anna, left. You're obsessed, she said, tears in her eyes. This isn't you. She was right, but betrayal fueled me. Imagine building dreams with someone, only for blood to rip it away. Relatable pain, right? I confronted Uncle at his office, storming past his new secretary. I know it's fake, I spat. The watermark, the signature. He smirked. Prove it, nephew. Get out of my office. His confidence cracked me, but I saw fear flicker in his eyes for a split second. That night, I backed up the USB, hid copies in 3 different locations. My lawyer filed suit quietly: fraud, theft of inheritance. Uncle laughed it off publicly, calling me a bitter loser. Media picked up, small articles hinting family feud. Tension mounted, court date loomed. I barely slept, dreaming of Dad's disappointed face. But the hidden footage was my ace. Court day dawned cold, my suit borrowed and slightly too tight, nerves like live wires. Uncle arrived in a limo, lawyers flanking him like guards. He looked rested, expensive. The judge, stern-faced, called order. My lawyer opened. This will is a forgery, Your Honor. A theft. Gasps rippled. Uncle's team scoffed, presenting the document as gospel. A deathbed change of heart, they claimed. I testified first, voice steady despite the knot in my stomach. Dad promised me the company, I said, recounting our garage days, hands dirty with oil, building from nothing. We built it together. Emotional, I choked up, relatable to fathers and sons everywhere. Uncle took the stand, lying smooth. My brother trusted me more. My nephew is emotional. Not a businessman. His eyes avoided mine. Then the expert spoke, pointing out ink anomalies, signature mismatches, and the personal stationery watermark. Jury leaned in, intrigued. But Uncle's lawyer poked holes, saying, coincidence. Grief. Suspense hung heavy, I felt defeat creep in. My uncle grinned across the room, thinking he'd won again. Little did he know, the USB burned in my pocket, footage ready to expose everything. The pain of loss fueled my resolve. Dad's company, our bond, stolen. I nodded to my lawyer, time to drop the bomb. My lawyer called for the video evidence. The defense claims this was a deathbed change of heart. We have evidence to the contrary. The courtroom screen flickered to life. Dad appeared, strong despite illness, speaking direct to camera. If you're watching this, something's wrong. My will leaves everything to my son. Galbert gets zip, he's untrustworthy. Murmurs erupted. Uncle's face drained white, like milk spilling. The footage showed Dad signing the real will, date stamped 3 days before the forgery's date. I hid this because I feared tampering, Dad said. Jury eyes widened, even the judge leaned forward, glasses perched on her nose. Uncle stammered, that's edited. It's fake. But tech experts confirmed authenticity. I watched satisfaction bloom, revenge cold and sharp, like a blade honed slow. The pain agitated anew, years lost, Dad's grave visited alone while Uncle profited. Relatable betrayal, family turning snake. Court recessed, Uncle cornered me in the hall. "You little rat," he hissed, grabbing my arm. "You'll pay for this." I stood tall. Dad's truth wins. Back in session, more witnesses piled on, employees testifying Uncle's shady deals. The net closed. By day's end, the judge ordered forensic tests on the forged wills ink. Uncle sweated, his empire cracking. But the real twist waited. Tests came back, ink from a printer cartridge manufactured after Dad's death. Forgery proven, undeniable. Uncle's lawyers scrambled, trying to claim clerical error, but the jury smelled guilt. I sat through closing arguments, heart racing. My lawyer painted Uncle as a thief, a modern-day Cain stealing from blood. "Justice for the son," he urged. Uncle's side pleaded mistake, a grieving brother's confusion, but it rang hollow. Deliberation took hours. I paced the hall, mind replaying Dad's lessons: honesty builds, lies crumble. Emotional weight crushed me, losing Dad, then this fight. Relatable to anyone fighting family greed. Verdict came, guilty of fraud. Company reverted to me, Uncle fined heavy and sentenced to 5 years for the fraud. He glared daggers as cuffs clicked. He was done. But wait, post-trial, going through the safe's other documents, I uncovered more. Hidden accounts, offshore holdings. Dad had suspected, left clues in the safe I missed. The embezzlement. The real crime. I froze his remaining assets, filed a new suit for civil damages and alerted the DA. Media exploded, nephew's revenge, Uncle jailed for forgery. Shares poured in. Uncle begged from jail, family mercy. I hung up. Justice tasted bittersweet, but the next fight had just begun. Taking the company reins felt surreal. I walked into the office, the few remaining loyal employees cheering. "Welcome back, boss." I immediately renamed it Miller & Son Machining, Dad's original name. I fired Uncle's cronies, the smug HR manager and the CFO who'd looked the other way. Business was terrible, Uncle had run it into debt, chasing quick buck contracts. But scars lingered, trust shattered like glass. Nights, I visited Dad's grave, updating him. "We won, Pop. The company's back. But he stole more. I'm going after it all." Emotional, tears fell, relatable grief. Uncle's trial for the embezzlement loomed, evidence mounted, bank trails leading to the Cayman Islands. He offered deals from prison, returned some funds for leniency. I refused. I wanted him to answer for every cent. One day, a letter from prison: "I'm rotting in here." I was jealous. "Forgive me." I burned it. Revenge wasn't about forgiveness, it was about consequences. The fight for the fraud was over, but the fight for Dad's full legacy was next. The company was a wreck. Uncle Galbert hadn't just stolen, he'd mismanaged. The books were cooked, showing phantom profits. Loyal clients were gone, scared off by late deliveries and poor quality. The CNC lathe, Dad's prized machine, was broken, sold for scrap parts by Galbert's cronies. Morale was rock bottom. The employees who stayed looked at me with a mix of hope and fear. "He bankrupted us, kid," one of the old-timers, Mike, told me. "We're weeks from closing." I called an all-hands meeting in the dusty break room. "I'm not my uncle," I said, my voice echoing slightly. "I'm my father's son. This place was built on quality, and we're bringing that back. It won't be easy, but I won't quit." It was a hard sell. I poured my own fraud settlement money back into the business, just to make payroll. The first few months were hell, working 18-hour days, fixing machines myself, just like Dad and I used to. I had to earn their trust back, one busted knuckle at a time. Just as we started to stabilize, the legal bills mounted again. Uncle Galbert, even from his cell, was fighting. His lawyers filed an appeal for the fraud conviction, claiming judicial error and coerced testimony from the handwriting expert. They argued the video was inadmissible. It was garbage, but it meant more money, more time in court. They filed injunctions to try and stop me from selling assets Galbert had acquired, claiming they were disputed marital property with his wife, who was suddenly playing the victim. The stress was immense. Every time the phone rang, I expected it to be my lawyer with bad news. "He's just trying to bleed you dry," my lawyer said. "He knows you're struggling to keep the company afloat. He wants you to fail." That realization hit hard. This wasn't just about the appeal, it was about him trying to win the war from prison, to destroy what he couldn't have. It made me dig my heels in deeper. I wasn't just saving Dad's company, I was defending it. My personal life was a casualty of the war. Anna, my girlfriend who'd left during the investigation, was gone for good. I'd heard she was engaged. It stung, but I couldn't blame her. I had been obsessed, a ghost haunted by betrayal. I tried dating, but trust was a foreign concept. How could I trust a stranger when my own blood had tried to destroy me? Old friends slowly trickled back, the ones who'd believed Galbert's bitter loser narrative. "Man, I'm sorry," one said, buying me a beer. He was your uncle." I nodded, accepting the apology but filing away the memory. The deepest cut came from family. My aunt, Galbert's wife, called me screaming. "You ruined us. Our kids have nothing." I hung up. But a cousin, Galbert's son, called me secretly. "I always knew my dad was a snake," he whispered. "I'm glad you got him." The family was fractured, broken by one man's greed. It was a lonely, relatable pain. The threats from Chapter 4 returned, but uglier. Galbert's goons were gone, but he had connections inside prison. One night, I came home to find a dead rat on my porch, a note tied to its leg. "Prison has walls, but my reach doesn't." I called the cops, but they were useless. "It's just a prank, son." A few days later, a brick shattered my office window, landing right on Dad's old desk. The paranoia returned, thick and suffocating. I installed new locks, a security system. I started carrying pepper spray. It was exhausting. This was the life he dragged me into, constantly looking over my shoulder, wondering if the next guy I saw was one of his. My lawyer advised a restraining order, but it felt like paper against a tidal wave. "He's trying to scare you off the embezzlement case," my lawyer said. "He knows that's the one that will put him away for good." I refused to back down. "Let him try," I said, my voice harder than I felt. The embezzlement investigation was digging deeper than I ever imagined. The DA was involved now, and the forensics team uncovered a digital maze. Galbert wasn't just skimming, as Dad suspected. He was tunneling. He had set up 3 shell companies in Delaware, all registered to fake names. He'd been overbilling the company for consulting fees and raw materials that never existed, siphoning millions. But the real discovery came from a second USB drive Dad had hidden, this one taped underneath the safe. It contained ledgers. Dad knew. He'd been building his own case before the cancer got too bad. He'd tracked the money to an offshore account in the Caymans. Galbert hadn't just stolen my inheritance, he'd been bleeding my father dry while Dad was alive, probably hastening his death from the stress. This changed everything. It wasn't just theft, it felt like a slow, cold-blooded murder. The rage returned, hotter than ever. This wasn't about money. This was for Dad. The news of the new investigation, the embezzlement, shattered the remaining family ties. Dad's sister, my Aunt Margaret, called me, weeping. I knew Galbert was a leech, she cried, but I never thought, millions? While your father was sick? She told me stories I'd never heard, about Galbert stealing from their parents, about his gambling debts Dad had secretly paid off. The family had enabled him, hiding his sins to keep the peace. Relatable family drama, where everyone knows the secret but no one says it aloud. Galbert's wife, my Aunt Cindy, went on the offensive. She told the local paper I was a vindictive liar, that I was the one ruining the family name. Some cousins sided with her, others with me. Thanksgiving and Christmas became battlegrounds. I just stopped going. The company became my only family. Mike, the old-timer machinist, and the few others who stayed, they were my blood now. We were a broken crew, but we were bound by loyalty, something my uncle knew nothing about. The nephew's revenge story got a second wind. With the embezzlement charges and the new evidence from Dad's hidden USB drive, the media frenzy exploded. A local news station, then a national morning show, wanted an interview. I was terrified. I was an engineer, not a public speaker. But Mr. Ezekiel, Dad's old accountant, sat me down. Your father's name was dragged through the mud by Galbert, he said firmly. They called him a fool who trusted his brother. You have to go on. Tell the truth. Not just for you, but for him. He was right. I did the interview, sitting awkwardly in a suit. I told them about the garage, about Dad's lessons, about the forgery, and about the deep betrayal of the embezzlement. I wasn't smooth, but I was real. The response was overwhelming. Emails and letters poured in, people sharing their own stories of inheritance theft and family betrayal. I had tapped into a relatable pain, and I had become a face for fighting back. With the media attention, something unexpected happened. Old clients saw the story. They heard Miller and Son was back, and that I was in charge, not Galbert. The phone started ringing. Your dad was a good man, one old client said. If you're half the man he was, we're back. We weren't just surviving, we were growing. I finally moved out of the rundown apartment. I bought a small house, a fixer-upper, but it was mine. I spent weekends working on it, sanding floors, painting walls. It was a different kind of building, healing. At the shop, I used my engineering degree to design a new component for the aerospace industry, something Dad and I had tinkered with. It was risky, but it paid off. We landed a small contract. It felt like I was finally building my own legacy on top of his, not just cleaning up Galbert's mess. Life was still hard, the legal battles loomed, but I was building again. I got a call one night from a number I didn't recognize. It was Kingsley, an old high school acquaintance who now worked as a guard at the state prison where Galbert was. Hey man, crazy story about your uncle, he said. Just thought you'd like to know, he's not having a good time. He told me Galbert still tried to act like a big shot, like he was the boss. He tries to bribe guys, talk down to people, Kingsley laughed. Nobody respects him. They call him the prince. He got put on kitchen duty, scrubbing pots. Complained it was beneath him and got thrown in solitary for a week. A dark, cold satisfaction settled in my gut. It wasn't joy, exactly, but a sense of balance. He, who sat in Dad's chair with his feet up, was now scrubbing grease off pots for criminals. It was a fitting image. He asks about you, Kingsley added. Wonders if the company failed yet. I just said, tell him we're hiring, and hung up. The letter arrived, different from the first one. This one was on yellow legal paper, the handwriting shaky. I'm rotting in here, Galbert wrote. I was jealous. Your father had everything. The business, the respect, the son. I just wanted a piece of it. He went on, blaming Dad for not sharing more, blaming me for not knowing my place. Then came the plea. They're talking 20 more years for this embezzlement charge. It's a life sentence for me. Please. Talk to the DA. Tell them I'm sick. Tell them I've paid enough. I'm family. I read the letter twice. The "forgive me" was buried under excuses. He wasn't sorry he did it, he was sorry he got caught. I thought about the paranoia, the threats, Anna leaving, the employees he fired, the years he stole from Dad. I walked to the break room, held the letter over the trash, and lit it on fire. I watched his words turn to ash. That was my answer. The company was thriving. The new aerospace component I designed passed all its stress tests. The small contract turned into a massive, multi-year deal. It was a game changer. We had to hire 20 new people. I made sure to rehire every loyal employee Galbert had fired, paying them back wages out of my own pocket. The old-timer, Mike, was promoted to shop foreman. We held a company party, a barbecue in the parking lot. We gave out the first profit-sharing bonuses in a decade. "This is for my dad," I said, raising a beer, "and for all of you who stuck by him, and by me." The cheers were deafening. We weren't just a company, we were survivors. We invested in new machinery, replacing the junk Galbert had left. The shop was loud again, not with silence and fear, but with the hum of productivity, the sound of Dad's legacy roaring back to life. It was the sweetest sound in the world. On the second anniversary of Dad's death, I closed the shop for the day. I drove to the cemetery, the grass green, the air quiet. I sat by his headstone, James Miller. Father. Innovator. I traced the letters. "We did it, Dad," I whispered. "The company is safe. It's growing. I'm using that degree you paid for." I told him about the new contract, about Mike being foreman, about Galbert scrubbing pots in prison. The emotional weight that crushed me in court finally felt lighter. It wasn't gone, but it wasn't a burden. It was just memory. "I miss you," I said, the tears coming easy now, not hot with rage, but warm with grief. "I hope I'm making you proud." I left a small, machined part on the stone, the first component from our new aerospace contract. A piece of the future, a tribute to the past. Relatable grief, finding its way to peace. Life started to find a new normal. With the company stable, I had time to breathe. I met Anna, a different Anna, at an industry trade show. She was a supplier, sharp, funny, and she didn't look at me with pity. She'd heard the story, everyone in the industry had, but she treated me like a businessman, not a tabloid headline. "That was a hell of a fight you won," she said, shaking my hand. "What are you building next?" We had dinner. We talked about engineering, about dreams, not about my past. It was slow. Trust, for me, was a structure that had to be rebuilt from the foundation up. But she was patient. For the first time since my old girlfriend left, I felt something other than suspicion. It was hope. We went hiking, we cooked dinner. It was simple. It was good. A new chapter was beginning, one that I was writing, not one that Galbert had forced on me. The final court date arrived. This was the big one, the criminal trial for embezzlement. Galbert was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit, looking thin and gray. The bravado was gone. My testimony was clinical, cold. I presented Dad's hidden USB drive, the ledgers. The forensic accountants took the stand, mapping out the shell companies, the offshore accounts. They detailed $4.2 million stolen over 10 years. The jury was out for only 2 hours. The verdict, guilty on all counts. The judge was scathing. "You stole from your brother while he built a legacy, and you stole from him while he was dying," she said, her voice shaking with contempt. "You are a man without honor." She sentenced him to 20 additional years, to be served after his 5-year fraud sentence. 25 years. He wouldn't be out until he was an old man. It was done. The final legal nail. I walked out of the courtroom and didn't look back. The social consequences for Galbert were absolute. His wife, Aunt Cindy, who had defended him, filed for divorce the day after the sentencing. She claimed she was a victim, too, though the accounts showed she'd spent plenty of the stolen money. She was forced to sell their lavish house to pay back part of the civil settlement. My cousins, Galbert's kids, were devastated. The one who had supported me called, asking for a job. I gave it to him. The others legally changed their last names, erasing Miller from their identity, wanting no part of their father's shame. Galbert was truly alone. No money, no family, no respect. He was erased. The family members who had shunned me sent awkward holiday cards. I didn't reply. I had my new family at the shop, and I had Anna. The poison had been purged. I sat in Dad's office, but it was my office now. I'd rebuilt it, modern but with his old drafting table in the corner. The machines hummed on the floor below, a sound of health. Anna, the new Anna, brought me a coffee, kissing my head. "Big day," she said. It was. We were breaking ground on a new wing for the shop. The obsession that my ex-girlfriend had seen in me was gone. The paranoia had faded. It was replaced by purpose. I looked at a photo on the desk, me and Dad, grease on our faces, grinning in the old garage. We'd won. The fight was over. I wasn't just the nephew who got revenge, I was the CEO of Miller & Son, a son who had protected his father's legacy. I felt a profound sense of peace settle over me, quiet and strong as steel. My story went viral, a cautionary tale about family greed. People shared it, commented, sent messages. My sister did the same thing, one read. "Thank you for fighting." It's a pain relatable to anyone who's seen the dark side of family. Betrayal from blood cuts deepest, but you can fight back. Honesty does build, and lies do crumble, just like Dad said. Justice isn't always fast, and it's never easy, but it's worth it. You have to be meticulous, you have to be relentless, and you have to be willing to stand alone. I restored my father's company, but I also reclaimed my life. If this story hits home for you, if you've ever been cheated by someone you trusted, share this. Tell me where you're reading from in the comments. Let's connect over justice. And subscribe, because the truth always needs a spotlight. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the playlist now.